After I divorced Lena, she turned around and took the hand of her first love, Miles. The next time we met, I was gigging at a bar, and she had a different man in her arms. I had returned to my old life, while she, it seemed, could never go back to hers. The day Lena and I got divorced, City Hall was packed. The couple at the next counter was having a terrible fight, but they ended up not going through with it. Lena and I sat together in silence, calmly signing the papers. We walked out the door side by side, divorce certificates in hand. She handed me the car keys and said, "The car's yours." The Vanderbilt family was incredibly wealthy. They weren't short one luxury car. Besides, she had already transferred the title of the mansion we lived in to my name. But we had arrived in the same car, and I figured a Vanderbilt wasn't accustomed to taking taxis. Out of courtesy, I asked, "Should I give you a ride?" Before I could finish, a car horn blared beside us, and the window of a red Porsche rolled down to reveal a handsome, gentle face, every strand of his windswept hair perfectly in place. "Lena, get in." The man was Miles, Lena's childhood sweetheart who had just returned from overseas. Everyone in their social circles said Miles was Lena's first love. Seeing how perfectly they fit together, it all made sense. No wonder Lena had been so generous. She just wanted me out of the picture quickly. I managed a polite smile. "Since you have a ride, I'll be on my way." Lena looked at me calmly, her hands open at her sides, and after a long moment, she said, "Drive safe." I nodded, speaking with genuine sincerity. "All the best." "Goodbye, Lena." 2 months passed. By then, I had sold the house she gave me and bought a small 2-bedroom apartment in a great neighborhood. It was much smaller, but at least it didn't feel so cavernous living alone. The new place had a terrace that got wonderful light, and I often spent whole afternoons out there painting. At night, I went back to my old gig, singing at a local bar, observing the nightlife to find inspiration for my art. Tonight, I was filling in for a friend and was surprised to see Lena there. I was on stage, and she was in the audience. When our eyes met, hers were perfectly calm. Only the man she was leaning against wasn't Miles. Had she already dumped her first love? That seemed awfully quick. After 2 more songs, I stepped off stage to use the restroom and found Lena leaning against the doorway smoking. We hadn't seen each other in 2 months, and for a moment, I couldn't think of an appropriately awkward greeting. She spoke first, her voice a little hoarse through the veil of smoke. "How have you been?" "I'm doing well." Then she asked, "Running out of money?" I knew she was asking why I was singing in a bar again, since she'd given me the house, the car, and a sum of money large enough for a normal person to live on for the rest of their life. I didn't answer directly, just quipped, "Can you ever have too much?" Lena crushed out her cigarette, a cool smirk on her lips. "I forgot," she said, her tone biting. "You love money." I had married Lena for money after all. A year ago, she'd had a major fallout with her family, and to rebel against an arranged marriage, she had proposed to me, a complete stranger. It had been a night just like this in this very same bar where she'd said, "You're a decent singer and you're easy on the eyes. Want to marry me to get my family off my back?" In return, she would pay me a substantial sum. I desperately needed the money at the time, and I couldn't deny she was beautiful, so I agreed on the spot. I remember she was stunned for a second, then a knowing smile spread across her face. "You've got guts." I smiled back. "I've got nothing to lose." I only found out later that earning this money wasn't so simple. I could never fit into her world where the trust fund kids all looked down on my ordinary background. At one party while Lena was in the restroom, one of her drunk friends started mocking me, saying the only reason I was her fiancé was because her first love was still out of the country. I was arrogant back then, so I just raised my glass to the friend. "A psychic once told me I was destined for great wealth," I said. "And based on what you're saying, it sounds like she was right." It left her speechless, but I never went to any of Lena's parties again. It wasn't just her friends. The Vanderbilts never saw me as anything more than a placeholder. Her mother had apparently favored a socially prominent musician for her, not some low-life artist who couldn't even make a decent living. On the drive back from the Vanderbilt estate that day, Lena took my hand for the first time, tilting her head with a roguish grin to comfort me. "Don't mind my mother." I glanced down at our intertwined hands and teased her. "Didn't you tell them I'm a musician too?" Her eyes danced with amusement as she nodded seriously. "My mistake. Next time I introduce you, I'll be sure to add that title. Except to my mother. I'm afraid she might have a stroke." Looking back, There were definitely hard times in that marriage, but it never felt unbearable because Lena always made sure I was well compensated. We were just two people using each other. After that, I ran into Lena a few more times at the bar where I had my regular gig. As always, I was on stage and she was in the audience. Her table was always bustling with people, yet my eyes would always find her, a still point in the chaos. Lena never played dice or cards. She would just occasionally tilt her head with a faint smile or raise her glass for a toast. The only thing was, she had a different man in her arms every night, and without fail, none of them were as handsome or had the same vibrant energy as Miles. So where was Miles? Wasn't she afraid he would find out about her behavior? The thought distracted me. I messed up a lyric and the guitarist beside me shot me a look before seamlessly transitioning to the chorus. When I glanced back at the audience, my gaze locked with a pair of dark, intense eyes. Lena lazily dropped her gaze, finished her drink, and walked out with the handsome man's arm around her. I pulled my eyes away and continued singing my sad love song. We were 2 points moving in opposite directions, destined to travel along straight, endless lines that would never cross again. Love, a force of unknown depths, turning night into day and day into night. I guess I got too used to the easy life. Going from luxury back to basics was tough. After a few months of being back on my own, my body started to give out. I was leaving the outpatient pharmacy at City General Hospital when I ran into an old acquaintance, one of Lena's best friends who was wearing a doctor's white coat. Dr. Anya Kelly raised an eyebrow with a smile. "You've known me this long, and you didn't know I was a doctor?" She said it as if we were close. In reality, I only remembered her name because she was so beautiful. I gave a non-committal nod, intending to leave, but she stopped me. "Are you sick?" "Just a small cold." Anya glanced at the gastroenterology sign behind me and just smiled. When I got home, there was a familiar pair of men's leather shoes in the foyer. I could hear activity in the kitchen. From the doorway, my dad, wearing an apron, opened the kitchen door, and his eyes immediately fell on the pharmacy bag from City General in my hand, lingering there for a moment. He turned to open the fridge, his voice dripping with its usual sarcasm. "Well, would you look at that? A rich man's refrigerator is completely empty." I leaned against the wall and retorted playfully. "That's because rich people only eat fresh food. They don't keep leftovers. Frankly, I'd be grateful if you had any leftovers to eat at all." He had never approved of my ridiculous marriage to Lena, and ever since we got married, he'd spoken to me with this constant sarcastic edge. I knew he was a man of integrity who had taught me my whole life to be grounded, and he couldn't stand that he'd raised a son who was materialistic and vain. He was angry I'd made a joke of marriage, angry I'd sold myself for money, angry I'd let her family treat me with contempt without an ounce of shame. But ever since the divorce, he started taking the hour-long bus ride over to cook for me, always leaving my freezer stuffed with dumplings. Looking at his back, which didn't seem so tall anymore, I fought back tears and teased him. "Stop scolding me, Dad. I'm already getting my karma, aren't I?" Sure enough, he raised his finger as if to curse me out. But instead, the old man took a couple of deep breaths and just yelled, "Go wash your hands and eat." "I know, Dad." My body couldn't handle it anymore, so I quit the gig at the bar. Luckily, my recent paintings had all sold, so the income was decent. The art school friend who helps me sell my work called. "Your piece, Reset, has been sold." Staring at the blank canvas in front of me, I asked casually, "Was it that Ms. Bloom again?" "Yes, she loves your work." Lately, all of my paintings had been bought by a mysterious woman who called herself Ms. Bloom. She didn't seem to have a preferred style. She was just decisive and generous, buying every single piece I produced. "I see. Thanks for your hard work." My friend hesitated on the other end of the line. "Evan, do you happen to know her?" I blinked and smiled. "Nope. I saw Lena again at the mall. She and Miles were in a jewelry store picking out diamond rings." I stood outside, watching their happy, intimate moment through the window. Miles was sitting on a high stool trying on a ring. Lena stood beside him, smiling and offering her thoughts whenever he looked up for her opinion. His face was full of the pure joy and anticipation of a man about to get married. It was a world away from how I had been a year ago. Back then, Lena and I barely knew each other, and sitting in that couture jewelry boutique, I was too intimidated to even count the zeros on the price tags. It was Lena who sat lazily beside me, pointing out a few designs for me to try. The sales associate was all smiles, saying enthusiastically, "Mr. Anderson, please take a look at the styles. The diamond and band can be fully customized." I was so dazzled by the tray of diamonds I couldn't look away, let alone choose one. Seeing my hesitation, Lena simply picked one out, took my left hand, and slipped it onto my ring finger. Not bad. I glanced at the price and kept my mouth shut. She took it off, slid on another, and studied it. "This one's nice, too." I looked at the tag. Wow, even more expensive. After I had tried on the whole tray, Lena rested her chin on her hand and asked, "Which one do you like?" Overwhelmed with options, I was about to say they were all fine. Then I heard her add casually, "Or we could just take all of them." "This one," I said, flustered. I awkwardly selected a simple but unique, less-known design from the tray. The sales associate beside us explained, "Excellent choice, sir. The design is called Solely, and it represents 'You are solely my love.'" "Solely my love," Lena repeated softly, a smile spreading across her lips. "Let's get this one. It's perfect." Her gaze was so intense that in that moment, all the glittering jewels in the store seemed to dim, and she was the only thing that shone. And now, standing next to Miles, her expression was gentle, radiating a soft warmth. Who had she been thinking of, I wondered, when she sat next to me that day? "Evan." Nika came towards me from the mall entrance, handing me a paper bag with a grin. "Brought you a little something from my trip, so you can't say I'm cheap anymore." She was in town on business for a few days, so we planned to grab dinner. I teased her. "Is it the expensive kind?" Nika playfully tapped my head and slung her arm over my shoulder, steering me toward the escalator. Of course, my dear friend. I wouldn't dream of shortchanging you." We had only taken a few steps before we came face to face with Lena and Miles walking out of the shop. Lena's intense gaze locked onto Nika's hand on my shoulder, then traveled up her arm to her face, her beautiful eyes narrowing in an unreadable, assessing stare. I froze, completely unprepared for this encounter. It was Miles who broke the silence. "Long time no see, Evan." I snapped out of it, gave him a nod, and pulled Nico along, steering her around them to leave. We were already on the escalator before Nika finally processed it. "Wait, wasn't that your ex-wife?" When I married Lena, Nika had been working on a project overseas and couldn't come back for it. I'd only ever sent her a wedding photo, so I was surprised she even recognized Lena. "Yeah, that was her. She's never even met me, her supposed cousin-in-law, and then you got divorced. No wonder she was giving me such an icy stare. She probably thought I was your new girlfriend, right? Jealous." I thought of Miles standing beside her and shook my head with a smile. "No, she's with the man she loves." 3 months later, Lena's tech company went bankrupt after a failed investment. I was sitting on a bench in the hospital corridor waiting for my name to be called when I saw the news about her on my phone. Even though it was in the business section, the reporters used her stunning looks as clickbait, splashing a flawless headshot across the top of the article. In the photo, Lena wore a black dress, her chin held high in that characteristically defiant way, her eyes half-slitted, masking her cool indifference. I couldn't help but chuckle. She always had to look so cool. Evan Anderson. I looked up sharply to see Dr. Anya Kelly standing in front of me in her white coat. She glanced at the name on the waiting room monitor, her voice a low rasp. "Another cold." I tightened my grip on the lab report in my hand and replied, "Stomach's been acting up. Just here for a prescription." "Is that right?" It was late by the time I got home from the hospital. I'd taken the subway in the wrong direction and didn't realize my mistake until the end of the line, so it was past 9 by the time I finally made it home, only to see the familiar Bentley parked outside my building. I knew all of Lena's cars, and this one, with its vanity plate, was impossible to miss. As I walked past, I wasn't surprised to lock eyes with Lena, who was smoking by the open window. "What are you doing here?" She got out, dropped her cigarette to the pavement, and crushed it with her shoe, then leaned against the car without saying a word. My heart hammered in my chest, thinking Anya must have told her something. But when she finally spoke, she just asked, "Why are you home so late?" I breathed a sigh of relief, but didn't answer. Then she asked, "Were you on a date with that woman from the mall?" "Who?" "Nika." Lena's lips tightened as she looked up at me. "Did you see the news? I'm bankrupt." I wondered if she was here to borrow money, or if she just wanted some comfort. Then, looking down, she muttered, "You should find someone rich." That woman you were with obviously isn't willing to spend money on you. I scowled and snapped. What is wrong with you? I'm the one who's sick. After I collapsed at home, I nearly gave my dad a heart attack when he came to drop off food. I sat on the hospital bed in my gown, watching him busy himself unpacking a thermal container. I made some soup. It's bland, but try to have some. Is the head of the bed high enough? Do you want me to adjust it? Tell me what you're craving, and I'll ask the doctor if it's okay for you to have it. It had been so long since he'd spoken to me with such gentle calm. He sat down on the stool beside my bed and was quiet for a moment before his voice broke. This is what your mother died from. I never thought you. My mother died of late-stage stomach cancer, and so did my grandfather. It's hereditary, and now I have it, which means I probably don't have long either. But I forced a smile to comfort him. Medicine is so advanced now. As long as I follow the treatment, the doctors say I can live a normal life. Who knows? I might even outlive you. He sighed. Did you already know when you married Lena? Was it because of this? Yes, I needed a lot of money for the treatments, more than I could ever make from painting and singing. Then Lena found me. She was my benefactor, my last hope. But I didn't marry her just for the money. Lena probably doesn't remember that the first time we met was indeed in a bar, but it wasn't the time she thinks it was. It was much earlier. Back then, a drunk woman was harassing me after my set. She was tall and built, and when I refused to give her my number, she grabbed my arm roughly. Aren't you for sale? Stop playing hard to get. You should be flattered I'm interested. I was shaking with rage, trying to push her away. Let go of me, or I'm calling the cops. She just smirked and started dragging me toward an empty booth. Looks like someone needs to be taught a lesson. Just then, the sharp flick of a lighter cut through the air. In a dark corner, a flame flared to life. Lena was leaning against the wall, toying with a lighter, her eyes sharp and playful. Hey, you can't force it. The man said no. It's none of your business, so beat it. She stood up straight, lifting her chin with a look of cool disdain. I'm making this my business. Lena beat the woman up that night, pulled me out of the bar, and called a cab for me. Go on, get home safe. I leaned out the taxi window, looking at her worriedly. Is she going to be okay? If you need a witness, I can stay. Lena lit a cigarette, a casual laugh escaping with the smoke. Don't worry, I left her alive. The whole damsel in distress thing was a cliché, but I couldn't help the way my heart raced that night. From then on, whenever she was in the audience, my eyes would always find her. But she seemed to have forgotten all about the boy she'd casually rescued. The next time our eyes met, her gaze was that of a complete stranger. And yet, she was the one who said to me, "You're a decent singer and you're easy on the eyes. Want to marry me to get my family off my back?" By then, I already knew who she was. The daughter of a real estate mogul, a brilliant young entrepreneur, one of the city's most eligible and wealthy bachelors. We were from two different worlds, but suddenly our paths had crossed. Okay, the woman I could never truly have became my unspoken secret. Lena was in the headlines again, this time for an engagement, but her fiancé wasn't her first love. According to the news, he was the heir to a fortune, a perfect match for her in terms of social standing. The very next day, I ran into Miles at the hospital. He was walking out of the maternity ward, arm in arm with a sweet-looking woman, his face beaming with happiness. Evan. I nodded and started to walk past, but he caught up to me. Evan, do you have a minute to talk? On a bench outside the hospital, Miles told me with a warm smile. I'm going to be a father. The wedding is next month. I nodded and said with genuine sincerity, Congratulations. He tilted his head, studying me. You don't seem surprised. Aren't you going to ask if Lena's the one who's pregnant? We're divorced. Miles suddenly laughed. All right, I'm just kidding. It's not Lena who's pregnant. In fact, I came back to the States to get married, but my fiancée was never her. I sat there on the bench as a dry leaf spiraled down and landed on my lap. He had been gone for a while, but his words still echoed in my head. The person Lena loved wasn't Miles, and the rumor about him being her first love was just another shield she had used, just like me, to fend off her family. The doctors told me my condition was deteriorating and that I needed to be admitted for observation, so my dad brought my easel and supplies to my hospital room. But the light here wasn't as warm as the light on my little terrace at home. This place was filled with the sounds of crying and sighing, with partings and death, with shades of gray and white. It was impossible to feel inspired to paint, so my canvas remained blank. I just kept a sketchbook on my lap, doodling aimlessly. What are you drawing? Anya started visiting me from time to time after she found out I'd been admitted. We weren't close, but she didn't seem like a bad person. My pen kept moving as I answered offhandedly. Miss Rabbit. Anya leaned over my bed to look and chuckled. That arrogant expression is pure Lena. My pen paused for a beat before I continued sketching the outline of a top hat. You think so? The air in the room grew still, and for a long time, the only sound was the scratching of my pencil on the paper. You knew Lena's company was in trouble for a while, didn't you? Yes. And you knew that's why she divorced you? Yes. And Miles. I knew about that too. Anya was silent for a moment before speaking again. Then why did you agree to it? It's so obvious you love her. I looked up at her and held out the back of my hand, showing her the bruised track marks from the IVs, managing a pale, weak smile. Because, you see, I'm sick. My mom died of stomach cancer, and so did her father. So when I got the diagnosis, I felt a strange sense of destiny, as if something I'd always been expecting had finally arrived. I didn't spend much time grieving. In fact, right after I found out, I put everything on hold and planned a trip. I went to Telluride to see the Alpine Lakes dancing under a gorgeous sunset. I went to Denali to see the snow-capped peaks, screaming my defiance into the wind. I went to the grasslands of Montana where the endless plains met the sky. I traveled to so many places, trying to measure the world's beauty with my own 2 feet, trying to live what little time I had left with no regrets. But after my trip was over, fate threw Lena into my path. A woman that stunning was bound to inspire a deep, lingering obsession. I fell in love with her gentle, expressive eyes, and I drowned myself in the simple happiness of a life with her, sharing mundane days and passionate nights. We loved each other like any ordinary couple. But fate, it seems, is rarely fair. Lena's company ran into serious financial trouble. She hid it well, but I saw the light on in her study night after night. Then she grew distant, staying out all night. The gossip was that she'd grown tired of me, so when she asked for a divorce, I agreed without hesitation. It was clearly the answer she wanted, but for a split second, I saw a flicker of something in her beautiful eyes. She said, "Don't worry, you'll get everything you're owed." So she gave me the house, the car, and the money. But none of it could save my life. I took it all without protest, playing the part of the money-grubbing man she believed me to be, and then I slowly faded out of her life. But in the short time I thought I had left, I finally had a regret. After the chemo started, my hair began to fall out in clumps. The dark strands on the white hospital sheets every morning felt like invitations from death itself. I would quietly gather the fallen hairs and throw them away, and I stopped looking in mirrors altogether. Life in the hospital was tough. Beyond the pain of the treatments, I was surrounded by the goodbyes and grief of other people's lives. The woman in the next room also had terminal cancer. Her husband was by her side every single day, watching her fade from a vibrant, beautiful woman into a frail shell. And when she finally passed, the gentle man finally broke down. I saw him collapse over her bed, his large frame completely broken. And I thought to myself, it's better this way. I couldn't bear the thought of Lena crying with such heartbreaking sorrow. Later, I overheard the nurses chatting and learned that the devoted husband had remarried very quickly, just a few months after his wife's death. While others judged him, I could hear the sound of a man's desperate, round-the-clock struggle with a grief he couldn't bear alone. Perhaps the pain was too much, and he was just desperate for someone to fill the emptiness of his house. And then I thought it would be good if Lena remarried too. At least someone would be there to keep her company. That's why on the day of Lena's engagement, I was genuinely happy for her. Anya sat by my bed peeling an apple and casually brought up Lena. Her fiancé has been in love with her since they were kids. His persistence in chasing her back then was legendary in their circle. For him to finally win her over, you could say it's a blessing. On my phone screen were paparazzi photos from the engagement party. The two of them were pouring a champagne tower, a handsome couple looking perfect together. If someone loves her, that's all that matters. That's wonderful. Anya shot me a sideways glance, seeing my genuine expression, and a look of irritation crossed her face. Evan, are you an idiot? I just smiled and held out my hand. Are you going to give me that apple or not? She glared at me and shoved the peeled apple into my hand. I took a bite with a grin, and then she said suddenly, I've contacted a leading specialist overseas for you. Do you want to go abroad for treatment? Anya looked away and began to ramble. I mean, the medical facilities are better there, and this doctor is one of the best in his field. I just thought if you could go, maybe there's a better chance. Of course, if you're worried about being in an unfamiliar place, I actually have a fellowship opportunity there. So as a friend, I could go with you. Okay. She stopped talking and turned to look at me. I smiled. Thank you, my friend. My dad came with me. I'd initially argued against it, thinking that if I never came back, it would be easier for him to believe I was just living a new life abroad. But the stubborn old man wouldn't have it. You think you can handle foreign food? Your stomach is already sick. It needs proper care. I grinned and teased him. I was just trying to spare myself from seeing you cry. He looked out the window and sighed. Your mother will watch over you. Anya also said, the heavens will look after you. I asked earnestly, but if I'm praying in English, will the Eastern gods understand me? Anya rolled her eyes at me. Haven't you heard? English is a global language. But it seemed the gods had abandoned me. The surgery failed. In just a few weeks, I became so thin I was unrecognizable, my face pale and drawn. But I still held my pencil, sketching lightly on a pad of paper, drawing Miss Rabbit again. I nodded. She sat on the edge of my bed, resting her chin on her hand as she studied the drawing. Every single one of these looks like Lena, but why a rabbit? That woman is a wolf, not a rabbit. Have you ever seen her fight? She's vicious. I have. I smiled softly as the memory of the first time I saw her surfaced. I've seen her fight. She's ferocious. But the moment it's over, she's perfectly calm. But I've seen more of the everyday Lena, the one who eats quietly, who watches people intently, who has a sensitive and fragile heart. She'll snap if you push her too far, but if you just tease her a little, she'll curl up contentedly in your lap, just like a sweet, tame little rabbit. I couldn't help but ask Anya with a smile, don't you think she's adorable when she's being sweet? Anya fell silent for a long moment. Maybe you should see her, she finally said. She doesn't have any feelings for that man. The Vanderbilts are just forcing her. I know. Ever since she started buying my paintings under the name Mrs. Bloom, I understood. Stars across the land, a spring bloom reborn, Lena. It was all surprisingly clear. I couldn't eat. I grew weaker and weaker until I couldn't even hold a pencil. Looking at my dad's grim face as he unpacked a container of food by my bed, I spoke to him with a rare seriousness. Dad, when I bought that apartment back home, I put it in your name. The deed is behind Mom's photograph. There's also a bank card there. There isn't a lot of money in it, but it's for you, a little something from me. Please don't be afraid to use it. Every penny in that account is money I earned myself. The money from Lena, it all went to the treatments. There wasn't much left. And yes, if you meet a nice woman, you should get married. I've always been okay with that. It's too hard to be alone. He pressed his lips together, saying nothing, just trying to bring the spoon to my mouth. A tear escaped and rolled down my cheek. Dad, I don't want it. Can you just push me outside for some sun? It had been raining for days, a miserable, constant drizzle, but today the sun had finally come out. I closed my eyes, soaking in the sunlight, feeling a deep lethargy, the smell of damp earth and grass filling the air. I thought I heard someone calling my name from far away. I opened my eyes and strained to see. Someone was running toward me, silhouetted against the light. She, who was always so pristine, was wearing a dress splattered with mud. It was Lena. Her eyes were wide with a frantic, desperate look. As she reached me, tears streamed down her face and her hand gripping mine wouldn't stop shaking. She cried, Evan, you liar. Why did you lie to me, Evan? Please, just lie to me one more time. This tall, powerful woman collapsed at my knees, crying like a child. My thin, bony hand stroked her soft hair, and I smiled, feeling a sense of peace. It's so good to see you. But Lena, I'm getting a little sleepy. As everything started to fade, the last thing I heard was her heartbroken scream, please don't. For Lena, meeting Evan was fate. She had been fighting with her family and had taken a solo trip to escape. And there at the foot of the snowy peaks in Denali, she met a young man who was also hiking alone. He wasn't classically handsome, but he had a face you wanted to keep looking at, and she found herself stealing more than one glance until she heard him shout into the vast snowy wilderness, I'm not ready to give up. Lena had been about to leave, but hearing that made her smile. When she turned to find him, He was just walking past her. He wore a light, cool, floral scent, like a rare wildflower found high in the mountains. Lena was captivated and found herself following him. Hello. It was the first time she'd ever hit on a guy, and it was a spectacular failure. The young man just pulled his bandana up over his face and said, "Divorced with a kid." The next time she saw him, the supposedly divorced father was Evan, singing on a stool in a bar. His voice was unique, like a smooth, sweet liquor, not strong but all the more intoxicating for it. Lena rarely had her people look into a man, but the report came back with no mention of a divorce or a child. She didn't approach him again, but she started coming to the bar often, just to hear him sing. He was a good singer and handsome, so there were always some idiots who couldn't keep their hands to themselves. So she followed them and taught one of them a lesson. She hadn't gotten into a physical fight in a long time, and she'd had a few drinks, so she might have been a bit rough. It was only when she was done that she remembered he was still standing there. Lena composed herself and dragged him away. There should have been no rush. She had all the time in the world to get to know this young man. But the Vanderbilts couldn't wait. They had a marriage already arranged for her. The Vanderbilts were happy, her mother was happy, but she was not. She wanted to choose the man she liked, so she played to what she thought he wanted and simply offered Evan money. But the boy was bold and intense, and he agreed immediately, which completely threw her off. With one move, she got the man she wanted and defied her family. It was a perfect plan. Lena was triumphant. She thought she had everything she wanted in the palm of her hand, everything except for Evan's heart. She thought they had a lifetime ahead of them and that she had all the time in the world to earn it. But the good times didn't last. The Vanderbilt family's finances collapsed and their already fragile empire fell into ruin. The ironic thing was the only way to save the family was for her to sacrifice her marriage and her love. Her father pointed a finger in her face and screamed, "Without the Vanderbilt name, you are nothing." Soon after, her own tech company went bankrupt. It wasn't a failed investment. Her own family had sabotaged her from behind to force her hand. Her parents had personally destroyed the company she had built from the ground up. It was just like when she was a child, building a castle with blocks only for her mother to knock it down and tell her it was punishment for skipping her piano lessons. She didn't care. She could always start over. But then her mother found her weak spot. You can always start another company if this one fails. But what if something were to happen to Evan? She couldn't risk him. The Vanderbilts were all monsters, and monsters were capable of anything. But Lena couldn't accept it. She felt there had to be something she could do. 2 days later, Evan was hit by a delivery scooter and needed 5 stitches in his leg. Lena knew it was her family's doing. It was a warning and a demand. "Let's get a divorce, okay?" He agreed just as quickly and cleanly as when she had first proposed. Even though she was the one asking for it, Lena had hoped he would hesitate, that he would look sad, that he would at least ask why instead of being so completely unfazed. Sometimes she wanted to tear that handsome face apart just to see if there was anything underneath besides a love of money, to see if he liked her even a little bit. On the day of her engagement party, she knew he would see the news online. That night, she drove to his apartment and stared at his dark window all night long. The next day at a luncheon, a friend let something slip after a few drinks. She said that Evan had gotten together with Anya Kelly right after the divorce. "I'm telling you, in our circle, you have to marry your own kind. Those low-class men only care about money." Lena let out a cold laugh, smashed her wine glass, and lunged at the woman, beating her soundly. By the time the others pulled them apart, the woman was still muttering indignantly, "What did I say that was wrong? I saw him getting into her car with my own 2 eyes." Lena stormed out, calling Anya as she walked to the parking garage. "Are you in love with Evan?" Anya was silent on the other end for a moment before saying, "I'm leaving for a fellowship abroad in a few days. He's coming with me." Lena threw her phone, kicked her car door, and wanted to smash the entire world to pieces. But who did she have the right to blame? Anya? Evan? Or herself? More days passed, and the young man was gone from her world. At first she would linger outside his building sometimes for the entire night, just hoping to see a light turn on in his window. But night after night passed, and she finally had to accept it. Her boy was gone. He had left with Anya. Lena thought about how she'd spent her whole life as a rebel, always fighting the Vanderbilts, only to end up as their obedient little puppet. Whatever, she thought, let it be. But 6 months later, she got an overseas call from Anya. "Evan is sick. You should come see him. What kind of sickness would make her use that tone of voice? Lena, you should probably hurry. He's fading fast. Very fast. Lena dropped everything, wanting only to get to her boy as fast as she could. But she was still too late. The beautiful rare wildflower she remembered had withered into a gaunt figure under the sun. 2 weeks later, a crash on the Golden Gate Bridge. The Vanderbilt heiress Lena was driving drunk and plunged with her car into the bay. No one knew it was the anniversary of the day she and I first met. She was simply on her way to see the boy she once loved.